So the first thing to say is just a very, very sincere thank you to you all. I know I was in touch with Jackie in Troedyrhiw to ask if she'd be willing to share with us, but I know you've been roped in as a cluster to talk about what you've been doing and the work that's been going on. I know there's a lot of people really interested in the work, and I know there's no topic that's more sought after at the moment than well-being, because I think if the pandemic's taught us anything, is that there's not a lot that's more important than that. So I will stop talking and I will hand over to you. And Jackie, do you want me to screen share straight away for you?
Yes, please. Claire,
yeah,
thanks.
I will mute myself and I will.
Okay, are you ready, Lou?
We are indeed. Thanks very much.
Okay, so good afternoon, everybody. Louise, thank you for letting us share our cluster approach for well-being. So just to introduce ourselves first of all, my name's Jackie Room and I'm the head teacher at Troedyrhiw Primary School. I'm also joined this afternoon with Simone Roden, who's the head of Ynysowen Primary School, Judith Edwards, who's the head of Abercanaid Primary School, and Liz Edmonds, who's the head of Edwardsville Primary School. Ryan Morgan, who's the head of Trelewis and Bedlington Primary School, also forms part of the cluster of primary schools, but he's unable to join us this afternoon. So in our presentation today, we wanted to share with you our cluster approach for supporting well-being in our schools. Can we go to the next slide, please, Lynn? So just to start off, our cluster model. So why have we decided on a school counsellor? As a cluster of schools, we all work closely together and in joint partnership. And wherever there is a common theme or an area that we want to prioritise, we always try to work together, share some costs for training, and it also allows us to have common practices amongst each other. So as a group of primary schools, we all felt that our well-being practices in school were strong and that they were embedded, and they were largely successful for most pupils. So all of the schools run ELSA, and some of the schools also run Thrive. And whilst these were effective, we did feel there was a gap when we needed, for the small minority of those pupils who needed specialist services, we felt that there was a gap. Even though we could refer to the Early Help Hub via Merthyr Local Authority for specialist counselling, very often we were met with waiting lists. When children were accepted, it sometimes relied on parents being able to take those children. So there was a limited capacity really for the specialist counselling services that we felt some of our children often needed. So whilst we were exploring this, we heard about Place to Be, which is a charity-run organisation, and some schools in Cardiff were already using this service to support their schools with the use of school counsellors and mental health practitioners. So as a cluster of heads, we got together, we went to visit one of the schools in Cardiff to find out how they were delivering specialist school counselling services. Following that then, we met up with Place to Be, and we began the process selection and recruitment to have our own mental health practitioner as a cluster. And we decided that we wanted a cluster approach for this because we wanted, first of all, as a cluster, we wanted to join up our policy and practice. This is particularly helpful for when pupils move from school to school, because sometimes that happens within our cluster. Children will be in perhaps Troedyrhiw and perhaps they'll transition to Edwardsville. So there was a similar policy and practice for parents and pupils so they knew what was going on. A cluster approach also allows us to have shared training. So we identify any common themes and trends. And I know, I think Judith's going to talk about this later on in the presentation. So we can share on training. And that also allows the staff to have a professional network so they can talk to each other, not just in their own schools, but between the cluster of schools. Also, by having a school counsellor as a cluster, so the same counsellor for the whole for the cluster, it allows us to have flexibility. So by that we mean if there was an emergency situation and perhaps a school all of a sudden needed the counsellor for more than the one day that they were allocated, it allowed us to have that flexibility in approach so we could share the school counsellor between each school. So that was the rationale really for having a cluster approach for the school counsellor. Can you go on to the next slide, Liz? So the next bit, we're talking about our vision. So we came together and had a vision for what we wanted well-being to be in our schools. And our strapline is, we care, we support, and we thrive. So basically, we looking at, as schools, we care about each other and our emotional health, and we recognise that we need to get this right. And I think what's different about our cluster approach is we're not just looking at well-being for our pupils, we're also looking at well-being for families, because we recognise sometimes by supporting an individual child, very often with mental health issues, the whole family is affected. So we often need to support the family as a whole and not just the individual pupil. So I think that makes our cluster approach stand out slightly different to other school council approaches. And also, the Place to Be school counsellor offers a drop-in session for staff, so we are supporting the staff's well-being. And again, I think Liz is going to talk about, or one of the heads are going to talk about that later on in the presentation. So our vision was, we want everybody to have an understanding of how people can be affected by mental health issues, and also so that we are more proactive and we've got an ethos and a learning strategy within our schools rather than just being reactive. So the role of the school counsellor, it is to provide one-to-one counselling sessions for children. It does provide family support, and it also provides support for staff. But more than that, it provides us training and strategies that all staff can use, so that we've got an ethos within the school where we identify that any one of us can have mental health issues at any different stage, or any one of us can be affected by it. And it's about how we develop those skills and supporting our children and staff to strengthen our approach to mental health and children's emotional well-being. So as a cluster, we recognise we've got a collective response to it. We want to be proactive. We're trying to develop the skills. We're trying to develop the skills of empathy. So we all have an understanding, as children and adults have an understanding of what mental health is and how that can affect individuals, but also those supporting individuals. We also aim to look at developing resilience. So we're developing the ability to adjust and respond to the challenges that we are faced with from time to time. Developing the confidence so we know what to do, so the children know how to ask for help. And families know where they can come to ask for support and for guidance. And also, I think an important skill is acceptance. Accepting that it's okay not to be happy all of the time. That's what our vision aims for us to do. And I'm going to move on now, Louise, to the next slide, and I believe Simone then is going to take over.
Thank you, Jackie. So yes, my name's Simone Roden and I'm head of Ynysowen Primary School in Aberfan. And the slide you see there in front of you is a snapshot of all the different services provided at the Place to Be in our schools. So we have Place to Talk, we have Place to Be, which is the one-to-one counselling, Place to Think, partnership working, themes and initiatives, and safeguarding. So on the next slide now, I'll start taking you through the first three, and then I'll hand over to Judith for the final three of those. So Place to Talk. These sessions are available to all pupils across the phases. In each class there are Place to Talk postbox, and any child can request an appointment. There are slips that they fill in requesting a meeting with the counsellor, and the pupils can also opt to take a friend if they so wish to make them feel more comfortable. Each morning, the school-based counsellor collects the request slips. She prioritises and provides drop-in appointments of 10 minutes, approximately 10 minutes for each pupil. The children then have opportunities to discuss their worries with the counsellor. The counsellor talks through issues with them and strategies and helps them overcome what they're dealing with to resolve the concerns they may have. Common themes we have found currently have included friendships, particularly with social media, WhatsApp groups, Snapchat, etc., along with online gaming and of course COVID-19. So on the next slide there, Louise, there's some feedback that we've had already from both children and staff. So obviously it's there for you to read yourself. It is small. So it says, I love working with Michelle. She always listens and helps me to understand why I might be feeling sad and how to feel better. And the staff has reported to say, Michelle's support has been invaluable, especially through COVID-19, where pupils' concerns and self-esteem have been challenged to tackle in the class. So on the next slide again, Louise, there's further examples of the benefits there. So a child said, it was nice to speak to Michelle instead of my parents about some of the things that have affected me. And the staff have reported that Michelle's strategies have proved useful for the children in resolving internal and external conflicts. And then the next slide, then there's some more examples again. Okay, so the next slide then talks about place to be. Now this is the one-to-one counselling. So schools, all schools within the clusters, we adopt our own graduated response to pupils' emotional well-being. And commonly pupils have access to ELSA, as Jackie described earlier. However, in some circumstances, this isn't sufficient and a child will need specific support over a number of weeks. When this happens, the school refers the child to the school counsellor, and the school-based counsellor works with the parents and pupils, initially information gathering, before implementing a programme of support, which can last anything between 7 and 20 weeks, 10 being around the norm. This is a family approach. Support is given to parents as well as pupils, which, as Jackie highlighted previously, this makes it different to other services such as exchange because it is about supporting the whole family and not just the child. On the next slide then, Louise, again, we have quotes from the impact that we've already seen in our schools from parents this time. So it says, following the recent loss of my daughter, Michelle has not only helped to support my grandson, but supported me through the time. And I'm glad that this service was offered for my daughter at the time when she needed it most. So it's good to get that feedback, not just from the children and the staff, but also from families also. So the third part of the programme is Place to Think. So at the end of each day, usually around 3:30 to 4:30, there's time for staff to speak to the counsellor. Now, this can be personal support and also school-based support for developing support on reoccurring themes within the classroom, such as bullying. What we feel is support for staff wellbeing can sometimes be overlooked in schools, and the focus is usually the child and the students. But Place to Think ensures that everyone's well-being is supported and managed and supported throughout the school, not just the individual pupils. Again, the following slide then gives some impact and feedback we've had from staff there. So staff are saying, I've had a child in class displaying difficulties relating to attachment. She was new and struggling to engage in lessons. Following conversation with Michelle, we were able to identify strategies to support, and they've been very useful. The other example says, having the mental health practitioner in the school has been a great support, as well as the work with the children. Having someone to talk through issues and to signpost has helped me feel more confident in my ability to support the families in our community. And that was with one of the family liaison officers. Okay, so I'm now going to pass you over to Judith, who's going to explain the next part of the presentation and the other 3 areas we get support with.
Diolch, Sim. Hi, I'm Jude Edwards, head teacher at Abercanaid Community School. I'm just going to start off with partnerships. As Jackie mentioned previously, we work really closely with the governors and schools within the cluster. We are all 6 primaries bought into the service. 4 of the primaries have 1 day a week, and my school and Berliniog School share a day for half a day a week, so the service could be afforded. Avon Taff is our comprehensive school that we all feed into. They haven't bought into the service because they already had link with the school counsellor. However, with transition, we have built up the knowledge bank now through the school counsellor, where they're going to link with their school counsellor, passing on common themes and trends. And also Avon Taff are putting together a pamphlet for the children, so that when they transition to Avon Taff, they know what services they can attach to, which is similar to what we already have in our primary schools. We have a strong governor link throughout the primary schools and the comprehensive, which we call a GIG, a Governor Improvement Group. And both our school counsellor and the lead within Place to Be have met with the group, where we've discussed the initiative and the common trends and themes that we found across the schools, 6 schools, and the way that we work in to show the impact of those. The links with the parents have improved dramatically, especially over the last year with lockdown, whereby the school counsellor links in with the families, where she contacts them, she sends them information and communicates them, linking them with the school. This links in with strengthened links then with outside agencies such as Early Help Hub within Merthyr, and many parents who would have possibly gone to Early Help Hub haven't had the need to go there now because they've had the link of the school counsellor within school. So if we go to the next link, the next slide, sorry. With the themes and initiative, we try as a cluster to try and do similar themed weeks or themed days. So we bring that allness of the project together. So with things like Wellbeing Wednesday, we've celebrated the Children's Mental Health Week, fundraising events, social media to try and spread the word across as well. So as a cluster, we try to work very closely with things like that. The next slide. These are some examples. We're very lucky to have a celebrity in the cluster who was born and bred in Troedyrhiw and went to Avon Taff as a child himself. I don't know whether you can see. He's a lovely bald-headed gentleman. He was Stephen Roberts when we knew him, when he was in school, but obviously celebrity changes his surnames, became Stephen Spears. And he's a good link within the cluster, especially with Troedyrhiw. And he sent a good luck link there and talking about inspirations and aspirations, which is what all of this project is all about. So that was the work from Troedyrhiw. The next slide is work from Abercanaid. And we were looking there, this is all work that we did through lockdown. So wellbeing was a foremost theme for us. And there we were celebrating how we were keeping mindfulness at home. You can see a yoga session in the bottom left-hand corner. I won't show you my photographs of that. I might lose my DBS. Okay, if we go to the next slide. This is work from Edwardsville with the mindfulness, and they've taken on the origami and the colouring in of mindfulness, where we all know that those kinds of things keep us calm and soothes us. So those are just little examples of what we do as a cluster on top of the work and the links that are sent by Place to Be for us to cover. So the next slide, the safeguarding issue. School counsellor will follow our safeguarding policy and the LA safeguarding policy, and she has access, we all have access to a platform called My Concern. I don't know if you have that in your local authorities. With My Concern, we log any safeguarding concerns that comes through to the safeguarding officers within the school, and it's reported to them. So Michelle, the school counsellor, will do that in each school that she goes to. Any safeguarding issues, she will speak to a safeguarding officer, then she'll log in My Concern, but then it's followed up the following week when she comes back in to see what has been done and seeing if anything she needs to be aware of. Obviously, confidentiality in these sessions is really important for the children. So we don't get to hear the ins and outs of the sessions. but we do get to hear of the safeguarding issues and the common trends and strengths that we have as a school, and then share as a cluster. And I'm going to hand over to Liz now in Edwardsville.
Hi everybody, so I'm Liz Edmonds, I'm head teacher at Edwardsville. So I'm going to talk to you first of all about the benefits to a cluster approach. I think Jackie actually mentioned these right at the beginning. I mean, there are the usual benefits that we all know from a cluster approach about sharing expertise and knowledge and being able to support each other in the different schools, developing that professional network amongst all of the staff in the different schools, and about the children having those shared experiences ready for transition up to Avon-Taff. Particularly for this model, one of the benefits of the cluster approach was that actually we were able to employ oh God, my mind's gone blank, to be able to employ a counsellor within the cluster. Obviously, we've all got budgetary constraints, but this was a way that we were all able to offer and improve our universal provision around wellbeing. So the shared finance was one of the benefits to this. Obviously, it's ensuring that as schools, our daily practices, we're all there supporting everybody's mental health. And it means that as a cluster, we're all pulling together and working in the same direction. We've all been able to have that graduated response. And as was explained earlier, although Avon-Taff haven't bought into the Place to Be counsellor, they have their own counsellor. And that means that there's going to be that smooth transition for those children who have accessed the counselling within the primary schools. Can we go to the next slide, please? Okay, so these are the number of children who've accessed the service. And I think you need to remember as well that whilst we've put this in place, we have had the lockdowns. So I'm sure you'll agree with me that the number of children who have accessed the services that Place to Be provide is still significant and really, really pleasing. So Place to Talk, which, if you remember, that's where the children themselves can opt to go and speak to Michelle, the counsellor. So between the schools, 234 different children have accessed that, and 244 15-minute sessions have been held. One of the interesting things that has come out of it is that we were expecting the majority of those children to discuss their concerns around COVID. But interestingly enough, as I think it was Simone mentioned earlier, the main themes that are coming up are those common themes that we deal with regards to friendships, family illness, bereavement, bullying, relationships that are going on, those common themes. One of the things that has come out about that is that there was a gender difference, with 3 times as many girls accessing this provision than boys. So one of the things that we need to look at moving forward is how can we be encouraging the boys to go and speak to Michelle. I mean, we know we hear in the media all of the time about the increase in young male suicide. So it's really important that from an early age, we're encouraging the boys to go and speak to Michelle. With regards to the one-to-one, 20 children at this time have been assessed. 15 children are currently accessing this, so 71 sessions have been attended by the children. It's really important as well at this stage to note that these one-to-one sessions were still offered during the recent lockdown. Not all of the children who were accessing the one-to-one sessions actively chose to continue with them and said that no, that they were happy, but some of the children did. So Michelle did do telephone calls, regular checkups and some virtual Teams meetings with the children and families that she was supporting. Can we go to the next slide, please? So the number of adults, so Place to Think, remembering this is for the staff to be able to go. So far, 12 staff have taken up the service with 13 sessions. And as was told previously, this is about working with children and also about staff and that self-care. And I think as was shared with you, the statements from the staff clearly show that this is a really valuable service. Parent partnership, again, 56 sessions, usually between 30 minutes and 1 hour. They've been carrying out assessments, check-in, signposting families. Some families have been signposted to services such as Child Bereavement UK and Winston's Wish. So Michelle is signposting those families. And again, you've seen those statements from families. It's an invaluable service, and it's really strengthened that school and home relationship. Can we go to the next slide, please? So the next steps. So we're coming almost to the end of the first year. We've been looking at now how we're going to continue into the second year. So we're going to obviously need to continue to raise awareness, being proactive, ensuring that we're informing parents. Only today we've been given some information about some parental workshops that are available online. Michelle has shared that information to us. It's gone out on our websites today and text to parents so that they're going to be able to access that. We're going to continue to support with the joined up thinking, looking at the common themes amongst the schools, how we can support each other with that. Obviously, we're going to be continuing to have training. So far, schools have had training in things such as attachment and supporting children through bereavement. We're also looking into the use of social media, things like the impact on relationships. Self-harm is something that's becoming more and more prevalent within young people, and body image. So we're going to be looking at that and how we can also support parents through training. And obviously and crucially, we need to evaluate and review. So we will be doing that at the end of this year. We will be doing a SWOT analysis as a cluster to actually identify all those things that have gone really, really well. And I'm sure you'll agree with me to say that there are huge strengths to this model, but also to look at what those weaknesses are, things that we can do better, any opportunities and threats as we move forward. So that's the end of that presentation. So I would just like to say thank you on behalf of the heads of the cluster for coming to this webinar, and opening it up then if anybody has any questions that they would like to ask. And if you address your questions to the other head teachers so I can just sit back, I would be very grateful.